Come, come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter how you came here, if you came alone or with others, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love, or how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. Whether you came with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. If you come here with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are indeed welcome here. The first reading is by Erica Hewitt, called These Bodies, These Blessings. Holy One, you knit me together in my mother's womb. This is the voice of Psalm 139. I was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Let us remember and celebrate this morning that each of our bodies was woven together in the depths of mystery. Cells multiplying, tissue taking form, organs taking up their function, all under the silky cover of skin. Let us gather in reverence for the gift of these bodies, whatever their ages, their shapes, their abilities. And may we know them to be channels of the world coming alive through us. These bodies, these blessings bring the world to life through seeing, taste, hearing, scent, and touch. May we bring to our intricately woven bodies a sense of sacred caretaking. In doing so, let us also be grateful for the embrace of the holy, the presence that sustains and creates life, the mystery that knit together each of our bodies, and the force of love that celebrates our desires. Let us take a moment to pray, meditate, or practice silence. If you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes or just let them rest. Gretchen Haley writes, "There is a place here for every piece of yourself. Bodies and spirits, voices and breath, broken and beautiful, bitter and still refusing to give up hope. Let every tender longing of your heart be an offering for this time and for this community we create together, where all bodies are beautiful, all ages, generations, sizes, shapes, abilities, colors, all beautiful, where all beings belong." Let us breathe now together and try just for a moment to hold ourselves in gentleness, this self, this body, just as we are, breathing in compassion for ourselves and breathing out compassion for one another. Let us give thanks for these bodies which got us here this morning, for breath, for heartbeat, for blood and bone, and let us pray for healing for all who need it, which is truly all of us, and especially those who are in pain or suffering, for all who have been told by this world that they are anything less than beautiful. And in quiet, let us pray the prayers of our own hearts.
Our second reading for this morning is entitled The Welcome Table, written by Reverend Dr. Robert Hardies. My question for us is this: what does it mean to be a people of the welcome table in an age of the wall? This is the question we will all face again and again in the years to come. In our resistance, we must not succumb to the temptations of self-righteousness. We must not succumb to the false belief that threats to the welcome table are solely external to us. Let us once and for all confess that the cultures of racism, patriarchy, xenophobia, and transphobia shape our souls too, even as we seek to resist them. The welcome table calls us now not only to the ministries of resistance, but also to the ministries of reconciliation, beginning with the people that are closest to us, including the conversation with our own story, while inviting another's story with openness.
When I grew up, I was fascinated by a movie called The Invisible Person, in Russian, Человек невидимка. It was a Soviet science fiction movie about a poor scientist, Dr. Griffin, who discovers a way to make things invisible. But because he does not have any money, he experiments on himself. When he succeeds to make himself invisible, he struggles to keep it secret from others, particularly from people who want to rise to powers and want his invention, but not to use for good. I was intrigued with this idea of invisibility and the powers that it seemed to offer. I was imagining, what would I do if I was invisible and I walked in the room? What would I see? What would I do when I see that? I thought it was fun. And later on, I realized that my imaginations were way off when it comes to real life. It turns out that we don't need a special elixir to make our bodies invisible. We already have ways to make sure that some of us live as if we are invisible to others. And we do this by denying a place at the table through cultures of isms, practices of exclusion, demonization, and violence. The explicit and implicit messages in our culture, politics, and even religion tells us that some bodies are more desirable than others, that some bodies do not matter, they do not belong. Some religions still teach that bodies are bad, or that we are supposed to live in our bodies in a certain way, denying the pleasures to our bodies, prescribing who we are supposed to fall in love with, or what kind of healthcare services should be allowed to aid our bodies. Our UU faith has not always been nice to bodies. Ralph Waldo Emerson once indicated that our super-rational religion has made us corpse cold. Because in our effort to reject the emotional fervor for reasoned religion and understanding, we got stuck in our heads and forgot that we have bodies. Some of our predecessors went as far as supporting a eugenics movement in the early 20th century, when quite many Unitarian leaders argued that there are bodies not worthy of having a life, and supported health marriages that would lead toward eugenically approved offspring. They celebrated eugenics sermon contests as they sought to better the future of society by eliminating bodies who might appear to be in the way of the perceived progress. And even today, we have cultural messages that tell us that there is something wrong with our bodies and that we need to improve them. From Botox to Nutri-Systems to fitness clubs to cosmetics and even clothing to disguise what lies beneath. Because as we are is not enough. Not strong enough, not attractive enough, not thin enough, not young enough, not healthy enough. The obsession with weight and diet is a $20 billion industry. And each year, 150,000 American women die of anorexia. Earlier this year, the Harvard study estimated that the bias against the body weight has increased by 40%. All of this contributing to many around us feeling as if our bodies do not matter, we're invisible. This kind of invisibility is not fun at all. You and I know that it is devastating when your voice is not heard, your body is not acknowledged in regular day-to-day experience over and over again. You find yourself longing for that place where you could belong, be accepted and acknowledged, because it is unbearable to be invisible in this way. C.J. Atkinson, a queer writer, educator, and trans activist, shares about their experience. They write, "When people don't see gender or sexuality, it makes me feel even more invisible than I already do. My gender identity, my sexual orientation aren't anyone's to dismiss. While it's great that people can go through the world and not see these facets of my identity, I can't. I'm reminded of my gender, both real and perceived, every time I have to answer the pop quiz to use a public restroom. Every time someone makes a transphobic joke and expects me to laugh. I'm reminded of my sexuality every time someone assumes who I might be romantically or sexually interested in, and again, when I'm expected to clarify. Invisibility creates painful experiences. People do not always recognize the gender identity of trans and non-binary persons whose pronouns do not match their gender identity or gender expression. Sometimes people deliberately call them by the wrong pronoun to make sure that those of us who are trans are not recognized as fully human, as ones who belong in this world. So when I introduced myself to you, I introduced my pronouns. Maybe it seemed strange, but I do this to counter the deep-seated assumption that gender is obvious. If we seek to normalize the process by explaining our pronouns, we might help trans people who have to do this all the time. This is an intentional practice towards welcoming and including people of all sexual orientations and gender identities. When Horizon became a welcoming congregation 12 years ago, you made a commitment to be intentional in welcoming LGBTQ community here. October is LGBTQ History Month, and this, just in a few days, on October 11, we will celebrate National Coming Out Day. It is not the day to come out or to out someone. It is a day when we commemorate one of the largest LGBT political rallies in Washington, D.C. that took place in 1987. It was a significant step to move us closer to equality, toward ensuring that people of all genders and all sexual orientations could have a life and live it to the fullest. Many things have been accomplished since then. We have made progress, from marriage equality to creating a comprehensive sexuality education resources, which we have here called OWL, Our Whole Lives, to vocabulary improvements and adjustments, and even our attitudes and biases. The Harvard study that I mentioned earlier found that the bias towards sexual orientation has dropped within 10 years, the last 10 years, by 33%. It's still high enough. But while this is affirming that things can change, the work of welcoming is not the thing of the past. Hate crimes against LGBTQ are on a slight rise within the last 3 years. 40% of all LGBTQ youth have considered suicide. More than half of trans and non-binary youth have seriously considered suicide. There is still work to be done so people of all genders and sexualities find a place of belonging and no longer need to hide or feel invisible in our society. Much of this work is needed in our day-to-day interactions, our words, our attitudes, because, as Reverend Rob Hardy's pointed out in the reading we heard earlier, the messages of isms are not external to us. They shape us, our souls, our very being, even as we seek to resist them. So how do we practice intentional welcome? Maybe even more. How are we a community of belonging to all bodies? We begin the worship service saying, "Come as you are. You are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, whom you love, how you speak, you are welcome here." We begin with welcome to open up ourselves, to open up this community to be a place and potentially become a place of belonging for all who come through these doors. We do this because we believe that human beings, to be human, what it means to be human is to be connected to others in meaningful ways. We are relational beings, and we thrive when we are a part of community where we matter, where our presence makes a difference, and where our body is not in the way, but is accepted and celebrated. And to do more work, we begin with conversation with those closest to us. And we share our stories. We draw on what we have learned from one another, and we listen with care and love. Fortunately, there are religions that teach that bodies are good, that the pleasures of the body are a gift. The Hindu Kama Sutra explores human sexuality and fulfillment of love. The Hebrew Song of Solomon celebrates sensuous love. Our bodies are good enough. They are the ones that make the world come alive to us. So we can feel proud of our wrinkles and scars, for these are the signs of living life to the fullest. What if we allow ourselves to think about our bodies and all of the bodies in a different way? Imagine and think back as you take a breath and feel your feet grounding you. How many times have your feet kept you moving, even when you were tempted to sit down and surrender? Even when the obstacles you faced made you feel like you did not have the energy, let alone the will to continue. Think about your arms and hands. How many children, family, and loved ones have your arms embraced? How many loads have they lifted from the heavy load of life burdens? How many love notes, cards, emails, texts have your hands written? How many times have you used your hands to shake a hand, hold a hand, or help someone who needs a hand? Moving up to your head. How many children, spouses, and significant others have your lips kissed? How many words have they formed? Some you may regret, but some you're proud of, and most of them you wouldn't take back. How many sounds have you appreciated? From the sounds of your children breathing, to the sounds of your dog barking or cat purring, to the sounds of all the words that you hear every day. As you breathe and exhale, be mindful of the gift of all these bodies sitting around you, whatever their age, their size, their ability. These bodies, these blessings, are the ones through which the world comes alive to us.